My name is Joanne Fish. I'm the Associate Dean of Humanities. We are going to let each individual panel member introduce themselves as we're finishing the last little bit to get our technology set up. Welcome. This is a panel discussion, and we do want to have a discussion. Each panel member does have some specific information that they want to present today, but kind of our format is going to be that we're going to present some specific information from each panel member, and then we're going to open it up to discussion. We did have a form out. We only got 2 questions, which is fine. They're actually probably questions that everybody is interested in hearing some responses to, so that's good. So you are, just to make sure you're in the right place, you are at a presentation, a panel discussion on AI at Jefferson College. So we're going to kind of cover a wide gamut of topics with AI today, everything from what our technology department is doing through what some of our faculty members have been doing. So it should be hopefully an exciting and lively discussion. I will let Isaac start. Introduce yourself.
All right, my name is Isaac. For those of you that don't know, I work in the IT department. I'm an information technology analyst, and I was the chair of the Operational Task Force Committee. And yeah, that's me.
Hello, I'm Olivia Lackey. I'm the Instruction and Outreach Librarian.
Hello, I'm Zachary Quick, and I'm the library assistant.
I'm Susan Todd. I coordinate our honors program, and I teach English, which should make ChatGPT my enemy, but we're very good friends.
Awesome.
I'm Leslie Hoff. I'm the college's controller.
Dustin Lemp, IT systems analyst.
I'm David Smith. I'm in the IT department and software development manager.
And I'm Holly Gillum. I'm the Director of Student Conduct and Community Standards.
All right, so I was the chair of the AI task force on the staff side. We had task force members Dan Smith, Dan Lauder, Alicia Newth, Vonda Davis, and myself. Our charge was to analyze the AI use on campus, identify what tools are being used, and determine if campus-wide policy or enterprise license for an AI tool would be beneficial. Let's see, so our methodology to approach this, we conducted a multi-step analysis. We reviewed the college's existing list of technology platforms to identify which AI tools our campus employees were using, if any at all. We then created and deployed a campus-wide survey that received 91 responses. This surveyed faculty and staff. We analyzed those responses to understand AI tool usage and sentiment. Okay. Okay, so our key finding, our number one finding here was that the perception of AI is divided and the usage is low. It was around almost perfectly split. So we then, our usage of these tools is currently low as well, with a majority, over 58% of respondents report that they rarely use AI in their work. I'm not sure if this is due to maybe they don't know or were unaware if they're using it. But that was what the survey data said. Let's see. So our key finding number 2 was that ChatGPT is what people prefer to use if they use it. So let's see, the primary use cases were for productivity tasks like document creation, generating emails, developing course content, research, and note-taking. Our recommendations. So we decided that we deemed that we should pursue an enterprise AI license that focuses on security and more of a guiding policy. And we then we wanted to develop a policy on guidance, not governance. So this empowers users and fosters innovation and avoids restrictive rules. So our next steps is, I don't know if everyone's aware, but we do have a free tier of Google Gemini that's with our Google campus accounts, and We know that Gemini is not a one-size-fits-all solution, but for those of you wanting to try it out, we do have that available. And yeah, so we think that there may be specific needs like academic integrity, cheating detection, and other productivity tools. You know, they may require different software and separate purchasing. So yeah, that's in conclude. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what we, what we found in our task force here. And I'll kick it off to Joanne to discuss her task force.
Go back. Oh yeah, there's.
Yeah, so I helped facilitate the AI for Instruction task force, and our charge was kind of multifaceted. So we wanted to create a set of guidelines to assist our instructors in establishing course policies. We wanted to be sure that we were helping to provide resources, or at least start to do that, because I don't think we'll ever be finished doing that as a college. To create a set of guidelines to help students and faculty or instructors use AI responsibly, transparently, and ethically, and those all do have a little bit of a different definition. And then to aid in the start of the development of AI for Instruction repository, and Olivia's going to talk a little bit about what the library's done, and I just want to give her kudos. She really gets a round of applause. Our library staff, I have to say, has done an amazing job. And even before we started task force work, they had started the LibGuides for AI. They've done just an amazing job at helping this college to start to really leverage what AI can do for us. So please take advantage of that. Go ahead, go to our next. So Olivia's going to talk for a second about how we're defining, some of the definitions. And there's so many terms when it comes to AI that we wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page with these definitions.
Yeah, so as we could see from the results that you all got, it does seem like a lot of us maybe do have experience with it, a lot of us don't. So we'll just establish some quick baselines. When we talk about artificial intelligence these days, it can mean a lot of different things depending on who is talking about it. But in general, it's largely the ability of computer technology, programs, systems to perform complex tasks that are usually just associated with human intelligence, things like problem solving, planning, reasoning, decision making, and then also the development of that technology. And it's also been around for a lot longer, even though, when we hear about it now, it's all these new things. But in general, the concept of AI has been around since like the 1950s, so it's not necessarily new, it's just developing super rapidly. And largely before, even just a couple years ago, we had what was called traditional or narrow or weak AI. And that is AI that's just kind of trained to follow specific rules, do particular tasks intelligently. That involved a lot of data analysis, identifying patterns, and then making predictions based on that data. It's not creating anything new. I saw something recently to help me understand it a little bit better, and a nice analogy, looking at traditional versus Gen AI, which we'll talk about in a second, that like online chess bots, they do a lot of this traditional narrow weak AI. They can learn how to play chess, they can make decisions based on the rules of chess. They are not finding new ways to play chess in theory. Can you go to the next slide? Thanks. So now, generative artificial intelligence, or Gen AI, is a lot of what is super common talked about now. These are things that are basically intended to learn from their data and generate something new that mimics the thing that they were trained on. So they basically are generating something new or realistic from a set of their training data. That can be text, images, audio. They use deep learning techniques, which I can't possibly learn enough about to begin to explain, but just massive data sets to do all kinds of things, predicting new content, but they cannot think, do, or learn like humans. It cannot evaluate or guarantee the accuracy or quality of the data that it learned from or the output it provides. So it's important to keep that in mind as well. They are not operating like the human mind. We can't replace that. And yeah, common examples that will probably come up fairly frequently in this presentation: Chat GPT, if you haven't used it already, Gemini, Claude, and Copilot.
I just want to say, before we go any further, that it's super important to remember that there's nobody, I don't think, on our campus and really probably anywhere that is a pure expert on AI or AI use. And part of the reason for that is because it is developing so fast that there's so many things that change even on a daily basis. Every time I go to this professional development group that I'm in, they're introducing another new thing and talking about that the next thing is going to be available next week, and they're not exaggerating. So just keep in mind that really probably there's not going to be a resident AI expert on campus. We're all going to be learning kind of down our own little pathways depending on how we are going to be using it. So we're going to know have some deeper knowledge about specific uses depending on the practicality of where we're going to go with it. So just kind of keep that in mind. So our task force again looked at kind of guidelines for instructors, and one of the things, so a couple of things that we came up with was that we want instructors to include in their syllabi their AI course their course policies on AI use. Not telling you what that needs to be, but it can be anywhere from I don't want my students to use any AI to, you know what, maybe we should be using AI, but here I'm going to teach you how to use it and how to use it ethically. So the curriculum committee a couple of years ago came up with three statements that they would like us to use. And when you're creating your syllabus, most of us, you've been in a session somewhere where we've talked about this, but when you're creating your syllabus, they're in the course expectations section, where in simple syllabus, where you can type in items. Over on the right, there's help text. You can click on a link and it'll take you to that document where you can choose which approved statement you want to use, and then you can add to that if you want to. So the college is working to provide resources to instructors, and Olivia here in just a little bit is going to show you our new tips, tricks, and traps, say that 3 times fast, blog, where we really want college community members to put in there, like, what are the new things that you're learned to do? What are some things that you're doing that work? What are some traps that you've fallen into? What are some things you thought would work that aren't working that you want to warn us about? What are some questions that you have? We really want this to be the place for us to go, kind of like a Jefferson College, not Facebook, but that kind of a philosophy, that we can go to where we can come together as a community to work through some AI problems and help and that sort of thing. So Olivia will take us there very shortly. All right, application development.
All right. So I'm mainly a web developer here, and we write our code in IntelliJ, and they have a plugin called AI Assistant, which can really help you build out your code. So some of the things it's good at is adding new features. So think of like my Jeffco and your announcements, right? So I think everybody here is an employee. You should have the employee column of announcements and the regular one. If you wanted to add a new column for some reason, I could probably have AI help me get the code to make a new column there. It may or may not be copy-paste because it's not perfect, but it would usually give me a good idea of how to do that. enhancing existing features. Maybe I wanted to add something to, I don't know what it would be. Well, when you're looking at an announcement, there's a date that it was posted, right? So maybe if I didn't have that, I can say, all right, AI, help me put in the date this was posted. And it can help me figure out the code to do that. The thing that helps me most with is troubleshooting errors. I don't know if anybody's messed with code in here, but if you miss a semicolon somewhere, the whole thing's not gonna work. It's frustrating. So you can usually say, all right, AI, help me figure this out. This isn't working. What's up? And he'll say, hey, you missed a comma here, dummy. Cool, thanks. So it really is useful. And it's getting better every day too. I mean, just a couple days ago, me and Isaac found a new thing a new version that's even better. So it's always getting better. Some of the things it's not good at though is here at Jeffco we have specific things that we use. So we log into Google and we are able to use that Google account to pull in some information. But the AI component it can't read that. It doesn't know how to get to our Google system, right? We don't give it that access. So it's not always a copy and paste job. There's still a lot of human stuff in there. Creativity is really bad at, as I'll show you here in a minute. It's not good at being creative. Inserting changes automatically. There is a button on there you ask it a question, it'll give you some code. There's an apply button. You click that button, it puts it in there for you. That does not work. It breaks it every time. So it's good. It's helpful, but you really need to know what you're doing to make the most out of it. So here's an example of good AI in our development. This is the most basic thing here. Hello world. If you go into a coding class, you'll do that first probably. Simple thing says hello world. I asked AI, hey, can you make this better? Make it more personable. And then it gives you code that works. It's looks at the clock, says good morning, good afternoon, good evening, pulls in my name, puts it there. So that's a good example. Here's a bad example. So if you go to request something from IT, that's what our form looks like. I went to AI and I said, hey, here's our existing form. Make it better, make it look nicer, make it more professional, more modern, and that's what it gave me. So it's not great at being creative, but it really does help us in our day-to-day coding, like I said, especially with troubleshooting errors, because it can look at, we coded Java a lot of times, and it knows Java in and out. It's an old coding language, and it knows how to find the errors. So that's how I use AI.
All right, so I'm going to talk about a couple of things in IT that we've looked at. I'll start with the toolkit that we have available to us. We host a lot of our business critical applications in AWS because it allows our small team to hook into existing services and really expedite deployment of things. Specifically with AI, Amazon has a couple of what they would call tiers. You can do managed services where they pretty much do everything for you, but they have restrictions, a lot less customization, and they generally cost more. Another tier that they would have are building blocks where they give you little pieces that you can hook into your own applications or your own services and get the features of AI in your own systems. And then of course, I didn't put on here, but you could always buy infrastructure from them and build it yourself. So a couple of the managed services that they have, Amazon Q is one of the newer ones. It is basically a managed AI service, and it lets us hook directly into an AI system with very little effort. But we don't get to choose the model it uses. It has severe restrictions on what data it can ingest. So while that one is not very costly, it has a lot of restrictions on what it can do. Kendra is another AI system that they have that's managed. And this kind of goes back to what Olivia was saying. Kendra is based on machine learning, so it's not a generative AI system. This is something that was probably the first iteration of intelligent document processing, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. This one was extremely expensive, but it's really neat. As far as building blocks, the two most common ones that they have, Bedrock is relatively new. That's where they have all of their generative AI services that we can hook into. And then SageMaker is another system that they have that allows you to build and host your own models. So if you wanted to train custom data sets and that kind of thing, SageMaker would be the way to do that, unless you want to do it from the ground up on that infrastructure. So I'm going to talk about two projects that we've had that really haven't come out of our office because we've run into roadblocks on one thing or another. The first one is intelligent document processing. Basically, this would be an upgrade to document imaging. We use Perceptive for that right now, but we've run into issues and limitations of that system. And so I've been exploring how can we do that better. And one of the ways is with AI's help. So two of the things that AI lets us do really well with document processing is that we can do automated indexing. There is some of that right now, but AI can do it better. So we could upload a document, it could pull all of the text from the document. This document could be a PDF, image, Word doc, etc. And then it will categorize all of that data on its own. They all become keywords. I believe it calls it like important phrases. And then you can use natural language queries on those documents. So we could say, I need all of the invoices for this vendor within this time frame. And it could pull that list of invoices up. We could do the same and extend that to student documentation. Say that, I don't know if this is a thing you would need, but if you need to know all the students that came in from a certain high school, so it would view the transcripts, what high school they came in from, and you could pull back that list of incoming students for that year. So the first system that we looked at that in was with Kendra. The bad thing is that it had scaling limitations, which meant we had a document limit of 100,000 documents. We have many more than that. And it was very expensive for that first iteration of AI. So some of the things that we're looking at is now with access to Bedrock, we have access to the building blocks underneath Kendra, and we can start building a more custom solution and get the benefits without some of those restrictions and cost. Another thing that I've been looking at is the generative AI chatbot. This is pretty common at this point, and a lot of places use them. With Bedrock, we have the ability to hook a chatbot into any of the models that they sell through their marketplace. They provide their own and access to several others. So one of the things I want to impress is that with the chatbot, this is a multi-channel communication, so it doesn't mean just like on a website chatbot. It can use, it could do voice, SMS, or via a web widget. The other thing that this would be able to do is we can hook it into a queue service. So we have a live chat on our website now that the help desk uses. So we can have this type of system in front of it, and then the student could say, I need to speak to a person. And it would say, okay, let me queue that up for you. And then they would go into a queue and be able to talk to somebody. The AI chatbot could ingest information from lots of different sources. This is where we run into our challenges, unfortunately. The most common thing that they recommend is to do website scraping, but we found that when we did website scraping, that the accuracy went way down. And that has to do with how it ingests the information and divides it into chunks. And when it did this, it missed a lot of information. So it would have the entire document there, but for example, if the date was only at the top, it could pull back information from that lower in the document and say that it's relevant, even though it's much older. So that was a problem that we've had. In the end, I think a document repository would serve us a lot better on this. We can upload tailored documents to it, and it can read and answer questions based on the documents. That way we can target exactly what we want it to know. Another thing that it can do, but I haven't looked at yet, is that it can look directly at structured data. So this would be like right into a database. So that could be on the future. Okay, I already went over the challenges basically. For future, I'll be looking at the structured data ingestion method and trying it again with the document repository to see if we can improve accuracy. Since the website, while it provided a lot more information, it was not very accurate.
Sure. Yep. Sure.
I did not put that on.
I did.
Don't get me wrong, I love The Office, but I did not put that on. But thank you. My slides were very boring. I'm Leslie Hoff again. I'm the controller, and I'm really just here because I've been using AI. So I've been actively attempting to just make things more efficient and work through problems more quickly utilizing artificial intelligence. I've got a ChatGPT license that I've been just using to do different types of research.
Next slide.
Yeah, you can go. Okay. So these are just some examples of different projects that I've been using ChatGPT for. I'm not going to go really in depth into all of these. Some very useful things. Item number 3, feedback and sensitivity response. That can be kind of fun. You just kind of type into ChatGPT the email exactly as the way you'd like to send it, and then you say, "Would you please soften this for me?" That I found that can be very useful to just kind of help you think of better ways to say things effectively. Let's see, another good one that I did recently, I had it help me get my institutional assessment started. There had never been an institutional assessment done for the finance department at Jefferson College before, so I had nothing to use to base it off of. So I just kind of put some information into ChatGPT, asked it some questions, and had it build something out for me. Of course, not all of it was appropriate. You have to read it, you have to evaluate it, you have to scrub it and massage it and make it appropriate for what you're using. Like Justin said, it does not evaluate itself. But it gives you a good starting point. And really anything that I've gotten out of ChatGPT, I look at it as a template. It's a template to start with, it is not a finished product. Another useful way that I used it, I did have a search committee that I was on, and I had a lot of candidates that I had to try and just kind of evaluate and compare against each other. The very important thing about anytime you're going to do anything like that is you have to scrub any identifying data out of whatever you're putting into the system. So I make sure I never reference Jefferson College's name whenever I put something into ChatGPT. I just say a college, a community college. I never say that our institution specifically. Of course, I take any people's names out of it. So for the ranking of job applicants, I took the the position duties and the posting, and I made copies of I copied the cover letter and the resume, took all personal information out of it, and just said, take this job posting and review, applicant 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and just compare them to the posting and rank them. And actually, I had already gone through and ranked them before I did it, so I had already read through the information. And I think I had about 6 different candidates that I put in there. And the ranking, I think the number 3 and 4 were switched. But otherwise, I agreed with what it had given me. So I felt that was a good test for that type of process. But I've queried it about the appropriate way to handle sunshine requests and employment regulations, looking at royalty and income taxes and unrelated business income tax, just A lot of things just to do research and give me, just save me some time and give me some feedback that I needed. That's all I have. Apparently.
I did not.
And I don't know if Marilyn Monroe actually said that or not, because the internet is notoriously bad at quote attribution. So, go on to that. So there is this double side of this stuff. I love ChatGPT. I pay for ChatGPT and Claude. But, you can think of it like a double agent who's working for you sometimes, but against you other times. You can't trust him. Or I kind of think of it as my really smart, creative friend who drinks a lot. So, you talk to him, but maybe don't trust everything. So I do use it in my personal life. A friend just got a medical diagnosis and we weren't sure what to do with that. Again, no names, but I took a screenshot, put it into ChatGPT, and it spit out all the kinds of great stuff about here's what treatment options you can expect, here are questions to ask a doctor, and it was great. And I do use it professionally as well. Again, no student name, and it doesn't grade my papers, though I have been tempted. But there have been times I've put in an assignment and said, all right, does this make sense? Think of it yourself as a student. That's one of the really good tricks you can do with it, is tell it act as. So you say, act as a 18-year-old community college freshman who's nervous about an English class. How would you react to this assignment? What questions you would have? It'll do that. You can say act as a marketing manager, act as whatever. So I use it to help brainstorm ideas. I use it to, if I have a new assignment and don't have model student papers, I will ask it to create weak and strong models to then go over it. And then I also encourage students to use it, though I've gotten surprising pushback from students who either are afraid of it or really don't like it. But I do think it's important to teach them how to use it as a collaborative tool, not as a ghostwriter. So I plan to keep trying to teach students how to use that. I had them do a debate with ChatGPT. It was kind of fun because it started out very polite, and so they wound up telling it, no, act more human, and then the debate, became like an internet debate. So I am certified in prompt engineering, and if anybody wants some one-on-one kind of brief lessons in how to use it, I would be happy to work with you. I've actually done that with a couple of people because I think it's really fun, and if you'd like me to sit with you and show you how to make your life or job maybe a little more manageable, I'm happy to do that. That's Todd at jeffco.edu.
So we've certainly heard quite a bit about the capabilities, advantages. So I wanted to focus more on some of the ethical concerns and then introduce, I'll have a few of the books available that are in the library in case you're interested in reading about some of these topics. So this particular one relates to the environmental impact, which I'll go into a little bit more depth here in just a moment. But I primarily wanted to look at something that I know Dan had addressed, and that it is initially costly, and it's not just in higher education, it's with any industry that's looking to initially get involved in AI. So you have to think about licensing, you have to think about the equipment, data centers, energy costs, and everyone has a budget. So that's going to have to be considered going forward if that's a route to innovate with AI. So as far as environmental impact, the data centers, they eat up a lot of energy. And we know that a Google search, it generates a lot of energy too. However, in terms of the data centers, it can be up to 10 times more energy consumed per using an AI, generative search. And so the energy cost is there, and just because we can't see it on the day-to-day doesn't mean it's not happening. So that is something we need to be aware of. And then as far as our institution or any other institution, if they're going to AI and they're searching for the information they need, we have to think about not just, all of us who are experienced and know other resources and collaborate with it. But we also have to think about the upcoming generation that are using it more readily, and that's all they're exposed to. So if that is their primary source of information, how is that going to help with whether it be education, whether it be health services, public safety? It could be anything. So this is what they're exposed to, and so we need to keep that in mind going forward. Oops, if I know how to use my own clicker. All right. So in general, for higher ed concerns, I focus broadly at the first one. In higher education, we look at the student experience. Once again, I had mentioned the generation that's coming up, if they're using AI tools, they may not use it in the way that we expect, which is as a starting point, as a tool. They may use it as the ends that justifies the means. So as an institution of education, we need to be able to help our students understand this and to better use it to enhance as opposed to replace. And I know Holly will talk more about the student experience. But as far as how we as faculty, staff, administration, it could impact how we interact with each other, how we interact with our students, and trying to enhance and provide the educational service that we are dedicated to every day. And so that's something to be aware of as we start to experiment, as we start to use it, as we start to innovate. And then I focus on the black box. All the information that they're getting, AI tools have a limited capacity, as we know, and so we try to do our best to explain, you need to find other resources, you need to find other ways to gain the information. And so they may go to AI initially. However, we know that you can't have the democratization of information inside of an echo chamber. So you have to help them learn where they can seek other answers. And one topic I wanted to introduce today was, Dan had mentioned it with his talk as far as one of the products that they've looked at. But agentic AI, or AI agents, it's similar in the way that we use generative AI, except it takes it just a step further. So it uses some form of generative AI. It has a form of memory that you input into it, and then it uses outside applications to not only, for example, if you gave it a prompt to run that prompt, it can work almost autonomously. And so it will, if you are trying to, for example, create a teaching plan, or if you're on a more personal level, hey, I want to create a trail plan, so I want to have a weekly plan of which trails I want to go to. It's going to go through what's the best location, what's the best weather for the day, and so it will do that without you prompting it a lot of times. And there's a few different examples where it's just singular. It can also be multiple, so it could be a higher level form of an AI agent that also coordinates with these other AI agents, almost like a team or department. So applications that we could see from this, obviously it could make certain procedures easier. You have to put less thought into it. It could help with planning. It could help with creating resource information for our students in a more accessible way. It could help with ordering products. It has a multifaceted benefit. Some of the concerns going forward is if it functions in the way like humans do, obviously we know it's a tool at this point, but if it can do certain things a lot easier than we can as humans, I think that's something we need to keep in mind. So as a tool, for sure, but tread cautiously. And with that, I will turn it to Olivia.
Alrighty.
Great.
Thanks. Yes, so, that's okay. So we've been, sorry, one more back. There we go. So yes, at the library, we've been trying to kind of anticipate what might be helpful for faculty that will either be engaging with AI for the first time or with students that are coming to them with questions. So we did go ahead last semester, work on developing a few different things that we have. This first one that I'll talk about is intended for students. So this LibGuide was created with students in mind, just to kind of be a place where they can go to learn more about AI and especially learn how to use it ethically, responsibly, and effectively. So there's a lot of information on this guide. I've been adding things as they've come up. There's information on here as well that you all, if you are also just wanting to get a better baseline of what's out there and learn more about some of the things that we've talked about up here already. We have best practices, things that it is largely used for, a lot of the things that Susan was talking about, brainstorming kinds of tools. You just definitely don't want it to replace your own thinking. You don't want it to ask it something that you yourself couldn't check. That's one of the big things to be aware of. So there's all kinds of information on here. The next page, I believe, lays out some common AI tools. So that will kind of go, if you want to. So the next page on the guide will talk about some AI tools. It lays out costs associated with them, where you can find them, and this as well. So we can hop into also the faculty version. So our faculty guide was also developed primarily in response to the AI for Instruction Task Force. We wanted to create a repository for all the kinds of resources, a place for faculty to go where they could learn a lot more about how we here at the college are doing things, what's out there to help support faculty and give them resources all in one place. So there's some information that's similar, overlaps with the student guide, things like key terms you'll find on both, things like the limitations and ethical concerns you'll find on both as well, but there is a lot more information on here that's specifically intended for higher education purposes. If you can click on, we'll do guides and resources and more, it's on that same guide.
Oh, that they kind of choose.
Nice. So yeah, this page specifically, lots of good, helpful resources just to be aware of other guides that other schools have made. Because I can't put everything on here that I want to. If I did, no one would ever look at it because it would be even more overwhelming than it may potentially feel. But there's a lot of things on here that you can use potentially in your classes if you are interested in incorporating it into your lessons, or things that are just fun for yourself. That real or AI quiz is not super involved, and I did not as well as I would have hoped. So that's a good way just to kind of start gauging your own awareness. Can you go to the next articles and reports right below it?
Can you talk about the product tracker?
Oh yeah, sure. So down here as well, there is, it's up top.
Stop scrolling.
The second one, sorry, the generative AI product tracker. This is a really cool tool for those of you that are interested in knowing more of the tools that are out there. Again, we all know a lot of the ones that are talked about often, but the generative AI product tracker is super helpful. It specifically is a bunch of different AI tools that are targeted at higher learning institutions and faculty and for use in schools. So if you are learning about one or you've heard of one and you want to learn more about it, the generative AI product tracker is developed by other higher education professionals. So if you want that perspective, definitely look in there. There's a lot of information, but they have a lot of tools on there, which also can break things out depending on if you want a particular tool for a particular thing you want to do. So that's a really cool resource. And then yeah, the articles and reports as well. There's a lot of things on here, again, probably way more, but things are coming out all the time, as we all know. So there's also a bunch of readings that are broken down on here into different concepts. We've got student perceptions and use of AI if you want to read more about studies that have been done on that. There's higher education, there's pedagogy in AI, there's accessibility in AI. So again, everything on here, you can kind of go to that particular section and learn a little bit more. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention books and ebooks. We have a lot of physical materials in addition to all of our online materials. I did bring this because
I
do you want to talk?
I'm on my second read through of this book. This is an easy read, but it has so much information, practical information for instruction, and it just talks about it. I don't know how to describe it even, but they give so many definitions that are easy for us to understand so that we can take that as an instructor, take that knowledge and share it with others and students. It really kind of drives home the idea of how important it is for our students to understand the use of AI for their careers and how industry is using AI, and how important it is for colleges to connect students with AI in order for them to land jobs and to be successful. So I just think that it's a great place to start if you want to learn more about AI.
Can you hold that up, Joanne?
Yeah, it's called Teaching with AI.
And it's not currently checked out.
It's also very accessible. I was skimming through it a little bit earlier and I was surprised by how easily it really broke things down. So if you really are a beginner, this might be a great place to start.
Who's the author?
The author, it is Bowen and Watson.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I will also say at the very end of our list here, we have our link to the Tips, Tricks, and Traps blog. And Joanne was talking about this a little bit earlier. This is very much our, kind of early stages prototype for our forum for everyone to share all of their own experiences with AI, learn from each other in regards to what you all are doing, things that you've had a lot of successes with, things that have really not worked out, and other things to be aware of. Other kinds of posts that are on here currently are things that we talked about during our AI for Instruction session. So there's more information, more resources on here, and they're broken down generally by topic.
Do you need to click on that this comment?
Oh, yeah, sure. You can click any of these will work if you click on them. But yeah, so as an example, I've just put up a couple of recent articles that I found that I thought might be interesting. So your recommended readings for August 2025. All of them will kind of look like this. They've got our post. If you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see a place that you can leave a comment. You will need to create a LibGuides account. Be sure that you do that with your Jeffco email. There is also a post on here linked in the welcome that will walk you through how to create that account. And there's a comment on there. Thanks so much. Wow. But yes, there's a lot of things on here, but it's also missing quite a bit because the key part of this is hearing from you all. So this is really intended to be as helpful as you all can make it. I'm currently the only person with the ability to make the larger posts, but please email me if you're like, we need something about this. I want to hear people's thoughts. Please reach out. I look at this thing multiple times a day, so I'm ready to update things. Again, anything that you think of that would be helpful for this, for any of our guides, the student guide as well, if you notice something seems outdated or your students are coming to you with questions that the guide can't really address. We are here to make sure that we are helping you guys out, and yeah, so that's those are kind of our big things that we developed. So take a look at those if you're interested.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about student conduct and how it relates to AI. As with everyone else, whenever ChatGPT came out and everybody began using it, there you go, thank you. I was a little overwhelmed for a moment, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this with student conduct? What is this going to look like? And we're just continuing to learn with everyone else as it comes out. So just briefly, a little bit of background on student conduct. And so thinking about what the biggest responsibility that we have is to ensure that our disciplinary procedures are consistently and fairly followed. Some of you may be aware of Dixon versus Alabama. That was a 1961 case in which 6 Black students were expelled from the university without giving any proper procedure. So no due process was given at the time. They didn't explain why they were being expelled. And so that's really set a precedent of we have to give students notice of what that charge is. And so that can be, letter, phone call, a meeting with them, and then a hearing. So they have the right to be heard and review the information of the allegation. In addition to that, as community members here at the college, they also have the responsibility to follow the student code of conduct as well as other policies and procedures that we have for our college community. Another thing that may be helpful to share is kind of the next step in a process with a student conduct report. And so that first step, we call it preliminary procedures for us here on campus. And so that's really just like investigation, gathering information. So once a report is received, there are some things specifically for any academic dishonesty, so cheating, plagiarism, that I might be looking for when I receive a report. So course syllabus is always really helpful. Like Joanne had mentioned, the use of AI in the classroom is dependent on instructors and what they would like for their students to use in that specific course. And so I rely heavily on how the instructor is handling AI in the classroom. So having that statement is just helpful in reinforcing the instructor doesn't allow this, or they only allow it in a certain capacity. So having that information is helpful.
Yeah, you talked just a minute about not just depending on an AI detector, but
Yeah. So can I hold on just a second? I will definitely get to that. No, you're okay. So the other information that is helpful for me to understand is how did you come about the concern? Whether it's AI involved or any sort of other cheating or dishonesty, plagiarism, etc. It helps me better understand the situation and bring that information to the student. And then from there, I'm going to meet with a student, and then that's their opportunity to be heard, right? And explain to me what happened in their own words, bring forward additional information that what they would like for me to review before I come up with a determination or finding. And then the last piece in that the process that is helpful to understand is our preponderance of evidence standard. That is what we use in order to determine a finding. We use terms responsible or not responsible. This standard is below what courts use, so beyond a reasonable doubt. We're not at that stage here within the student conduct process. But thinking of it as 51% or more likely did it happen. And as Joanne was mentioning, with AI, the tricky part can be like AI detectors are very helpful in determining if someone is using it in a paper, etc. But it doesn't just solely that, doesn't get me to that evidence standard. So it's very beneficial and helpful for me to understand what led you to believe they used AI. So maybe, their papers weren't very great in the beginning, and then all of a sudden they send you this paper that is just way over the top compared to what they wrote before. That is going to indicate to you that there's something different here. What's going on? And so in addition to that, you might run it through the AI detector, and then you see that 60% of it was probably written by AI. So then that helps us get that evidence standard. Caveat to that is a lot of the students that I've met with allegations that they used AI to plagiarize, they admit to it. If they admit to it, that we're already to that point, right? So it's the times in which a student completely denies it where I need that extra information to help me get to that standard. In addition to that, specific to academic dishonesty, we have two, so I want to explain first violation. So if an instructor or someone submits a referral to the student conduct office for any sort of academic dishonesty, that first one is really just putting it on record, and it's addressed by the instructor per their syllabus and their policy. So if a student receives a 0 for plagiarizing on an assignment, then we're noting that in the system, and we don't move through our procedure. But if that same student sends in or cheats in another course in that same semester, and I get that referral, then we're gonna move through that student conduct procedure. We also created a hold for academic dishonesty. What that is for is really so that a student can't withdraw from that course and kind of try to skirt away from the academic sanctions. So whatever the instructor is doing with the violation for their classroom. So if they, if they plagiarize twice in the classroom and then they fail the course, they can't withdraw and avoid that sanction from the instructor. So that hold kind of keeps that and reinforces the academic sanction. In addition to that, we worked closely with Olivia in the library to develop a mini course and quiz for the students that are found responsible in that second violation. So they have to go through that course and then have a quiz, ensuring that they understand what academic dishonesty is, ways that plagiarism can happen. We know that it's not always intentional, but it's still plagiarism either way, right? And then there's follow-up with me once more, to discuss any concerns or, if they didn't do well in the quiz, and we're gonna kind of talk through it a little bit more. And lastly, I wanted to share a little bit of data from last school year. So regarding first reports, we received 44. And this is academic dishonesty across the board. So second referrals, we've received 5. And then we've received 0 third reports. Of all of the referrals we received last year, 19 of them were marked for artificial intelligence. So we are keeping track of that and maxing it so that we can kind of see any patterns or concerns along the way for student conduct. And so the last thing I do want to say is with the data, it kind of is reinforcing that the sanctions are working. So thank you to instructors whenever you are talking to students about the plagiarism or the concerns or having those conversations. Based on the information up here, those things they're effective with the students and kind of reducing the number of second referrals we're receiving.
Thank you to all of the panelists. So, So one of our questions that came in asked about whether or not we have like a policy to provide the overall institutional policy regarding AI use in courses by students and how to handle it if we suspect that AI was used. So right now, we do not have an institutional policy because one of the first things that came up in the task force when we were talking about it on the instructional side was that it wasn't our job as a task force to tell instructors or faculty what to do in their individual classes, because that's not who we are as a college, right? We have shared governance, but we didn't want to tell you how to run your classes. So that's why we recommend that you make it very clear in your syllabi I guess if you want to call this a policy, you can, but you just make it very clear in your syllabi what your individual policy is for each of your classes. And you know what? Depending on what you teach and what your classes are, it may differ a little bit from class to class. But what your individual policy is and what the consequences are in those classes. Because what happens is if you, for instance, believe that a student has used AI, and let's say your policy is that they get a 0 on that assignment. Well, let's say it's a pretty big assignment worth a lot of points, and that results in the student getting a D or an F in the class. So end of the semester comes, the student has failed the class, maybe something else happened too, and so they failed the class. Now the student's going to do grade appeal. And of course, while the student isn't supposed to appeal an individual grade, this all becomes part of the argument. Like, Dr. Fish said I used AI, I didn't use AI, I'm going to argue that. I didn't even know this was going to happen. What your AD is going to do, because it comes to us, is we're going to go look at your syllabus and see what your class policy is. We're going to ask you how you determine that the student used AI or how you determine that the student cheated, and we're going to go from there. If it isn't clear what your policy was, then we're going to have a hard time with that, and we're going to have to do further investigation. So just make it easy on the investigative part of it and make everything very clear. So that's the policy, so to speak, is just make everything clear. Now, we're going to be forming a subcommittee under the technology committee. Isaac and I are going to lead that. And so we have a lot more work to do here on campus. And so we're going to have more conversations about all of this, but right now we don't have an official, here's policy, here's how Jefferson College handles AI use. The other question we had was, how will the college handle potential issues related to data privacy, security when students, faculty, and administration use third-party AI tools? This is a huge question, and I think something that we're all tackling. In fact, institutions across the country across the world are tackling that, so kind of just stand by on that, because it's a technology-based question, it's an institutional policy question, so know that we are going to be talking about that as a committee and as a college, and I'm sure all the way up to the Board of Trustees. So, what else do we have? What questions? Yeah.
Can you have something first though? I saw you were going like this. Okay, go.
Make sure you take the microphone, Steve.
Yes.
Okay, I have a question for Holly regarding student conduct. So do you do reflection papers with any of your students ever? And have you noticed any of them using AI to write said reflection papers for any sanctions?
So I think I can speak loudly enough, or do you want me to say out?
Get my steps in today.
So, in the if there is a third violation, we do a reflection paper, but the number of referrals for that third time has been pretty low. So.
Do you do for any other conduct violations though, like alcohol in residence halls or smoking on campus, things like that?
No, we haven't incorporated any papers. That used to be the second referral for academic dishonesty was a paper, but we were trying to find more creative ways for them to learn from the experience, because another piece that I kind of left out was because we are higher education, sanctions they cannot just be punitive, but we must be educational in nature. And so partnering with the library and their creativity and the information and tools has been really beneficial for that sanction. So I haven't had a lot of experience directly with students using AI when they turn in information to me.
I don't need the microphone. For AI detectors, do you have any recommendations or products that you currently use that are good or accurate that you could share with us so we could share with
Sure.
faculty?
Sure. Turnitin has one. With all of these, kind of like with AI itself, use them, maybe don't rely on them 100%. There is an AI detector in Turnitin that currently, and I actually haven't looked to see if this is still the case, last spring, students, there wasn't a way to let students see the AI similarity report. They can see the internet plagiarism report, but students can't see the AI report, but we can. Two I also use are ChatGPT 0 and 0GPT. But again, they're a little quirky. For instance, I've noticed they behave differently if I copy and paste text as opposed to uploading text. Because sometimes copy and pasting, you get some spacing issues and some formatting issues. So they actually responded differently depending on how I uploaded it. So experiment, play. Does anybody have any other tools?
Well, have you run into any that you like?
I have not done any detection myself, but.
One thing they talk about in this book is that there's a lot of false positives and there's a lot of false negatives when you use AI detectors. So just be really careful of whatever AI detector you use. Have multiple ways to think about how you're looking at student work. And also, it's not just in writing essays. It's working on science projects and math projects. So you have to really be analytical thinkers when you're looking at that.
I hate microphones.
Don't look at me like that.
It's okay. One thing we've done as an institution, I think, that is a disservice to students, is to have Grammarly as an installed tool within their Gmail suite or the Google suite that we have. Because students are not working in Google Drive, in the docs, they're not working in Microsoft Word, they're working in Grammarly. And what's happening is Grammarly's like, hey, you could say this better, and click a button and it's paraphrased. And students don't realize that that's AI doing the job. Then what happens is they copy it over into a document to turn it in for an essay. That essay then gets flagged, and I can tell you from the first paragraph that it's been plagiarized, because it's way better than anything I ever wrote for school. And the students are like, well, I didn't use AI, I didn't use ChatGPT, but when you investigate it, it's coming out of Grammarly, and I was an early proponent of Grammarly, but I'm actually telling students, do not use Grammarly. And they're like, well, the college is paying for it, why shouldn't I? Because it's hurting you. And I'm trying to give them alternatives, like PaperRater, to use PaperRater to get feedback instead of the other AI tools. Susan will tell you though, I am a proponent of using AI in the classroom for brainstorming and for proofreading papers. But the students are seeing that we've given them Grammarly, so we've given them a license to not really have to do a whole lot with their work. And that's the attitude they have.
One of the things we can, and again, depending on your philosophy and depending on your policy in your classroom, the types of things we could do too is we could explain that, let's say that you allow students to ask AI to brainstorm an outline or to make something, make sure that they have written a high quality paragraph, that the paragraph has all the elements they're supposed to have. But have them add the command that says, do not rewrite this for me, give me suggestions on what is missing, or give me suggestions on the types of things I could do better. But we have to teach them how to enter those prompts in a way that helps them improve without doing the work for them. So part of all of this is, I heard somebody the other day say, it's removing all of the students' critical thinking. Not necessarily if we teach them the proper way to interact with AI. It can actually improve critical thought and improve how they interact with the world, because when they go out into the workforce, more and more and more they're going to have to understand how to interact with these types of tools. And so it can improve if we teach them how to. And part of it's that we all have to learn how to do that. I mean, that's kind of my self-improvement for the next forever, so.
If I may, yeah, building on what Joanne just said, I will tell my students to specifically and explicitly say, I am writing this for a class and do not want to plagiarize. So teaching them the language to use, teaching them how to prompt is this new layer that we are adding onto our teaching for those who do want to incorporate it.
Joanne, I need to say something just real fast. So we need to be consistent with the message that we're receiving. AI detectors are not 100% sensitive nor specific. So if you are doing punitive measures within your course directed specifically with AI use, you need to be using a multimodal approach to ensure that. Turnitin, yes, is a tool, but there are legal actions going on across the country with respect to using Turnitin only as an AI detection and the follow-up to that and the exposure for the institution. So just be clear, use these detection tools. They are a great place to start, but do not use them. They are not 100% sensitive or specific as your only tool in detecting AI use, okay? Just wanted to be consistent with that.
And the other thing is, have a conversation with your students. Rather than just say, hey, you used AI, this paper gets a 0. Let's talk about this. You know, this feels like maybe there was some AI use in this. Can you tell me what your writing process was? Or maybe not even mention AI and just say, hey, this is an interesting, it was interesting the way this paper turned out or this assignment turned out. Can you explain your process to me? And things will come out in that, right? Have conversations with your students. Get them to tell you what happened when they were producing that. It'll come out if they used a means of producing that. Who else had their hand up? Yeah.
Thank you. Mine is just a follow-up question to Dr. Wilson. I know that I do use the Turnitin, but then I usually also use the GPT-0. But what happens is I run out of characters because there's a limit on that. And then if I'm wanting to use that for discussion board responses, same thing. A few days in, I've ran out of my character limit to be able to use that tool. Is there any conversation about maybe using one at the college and then being able to purchase some type of second level package where that can be no cost for faculty or all employees to use that?
This is the first time that I'm understanding that is a challenge. I can talk to Dr. Gear about that and see how we'd like to address it. The primary point I just want to be clear about is that Turnitin or ChatGPT 0 or 0GPT, none of them are perfect tools. So if we're using them to detect AI, they can't be the only tool we're using. We need to have some of your intuition as faculty members to say, this is not consistent. We need to have those conversations with students. Whereas Joanne just reported where when you ask a student about the paper and the student can't tell you anything on the subject, it's probably a pretty good idea they didn't write it. But it's those other pieces that add the full picture. But as far as the technology limitations of what you're referring to, I could talk to John and Chris about that.
Okay, yeah, even when I started an account, then it gives me more. However, I still hit that max, and then it tells me I exceeded whatever number of characters with that. So, thank you.
And that reminds me, I've got some bad news and I'll come back to you. I've got some bad news for everybody. ChatGPT and a couple of other models are getting ready to offer their services to students, not faculty, but to students for $1 a month. And starting like probably within the next week or two. So just be prepared.
Sign up as a student, yes. Yeah. Sign up as a student.
My question is about the expectation for attribution among faculty and staff. So we're asking students to identify if they use AI and how, and there are citation methods for doing that we are promoting. Are we as faculty and staff expected to disclose when we are using AI to teach our classes or create college documents, or anything?
I'll turn it over, but I'll just add that I think that transparency is vital. But Susan, I'll let you.
Yeah, the various citation methods really need to come into the 21st century. MLA's citation method for generative AI is
Stupid.
thank you.
That's the
Yes, yeah, it's archaic and, yeah, so, I still teach them how to use the MLA citation method, we'll teach APA.
All of that's
Yeah,
changing.
that's not my
constantly.
question though. My
Oh,
question
she's talking about
is,
being
do
transparent.
you tell them that you've used it
Yes.
to create an assignment?
Yes.
You say this assignment was created with the
Well,
help of AI.
nothing I do is ever solely yet, so I'll say I use I show them, here's how I use ChatGPT, and yeah, if they wrote the model, I tell them that.
Or it
So,
created
I
the
am
rubric.
transparent and show, so I'm sorry, I thought you meant specifically,
No, I
Say,
know
okay.
about the evolving AI citation methods that are coming out. I just wanted to know how we, as the models for our students, are disclosing that.
Yeah, I'm very open and actually, like I said, get some pushback from it.
I mean, there was actually, I can't remember what the college was, but there was actually a student who sued the college because her professor had used AI to create his lectures. And the case eventually got dropped or got dismissed. But so there's been legal actions out there because of that. However, so that's, I taught a class last spring and I used it one time and that was to help me write some scenarios that I wanted students to respond to. And I said, it was an online class, but I said, full disclosure, I asked AI to help me write these scenarios. Got 0 comments from students about it, but I was 100% transparent about how I used AI. But it is important, I think, that we are very transparent, and you can use that as a teaching tool, about how you're doing it. What else? We've got 10 minutes.
Can I add one more thing to what Lisa said? I don't think I need a microphone either, but since it's being recorded.
Lisa, I agree with you but we don't have all the answers yet, and not that we'll ever have all the answers by how quick it's changing. And I think Joanne and Isaac are doing a program, what is it, almost 6 months?
Oh, yeah,
The
the
league-
6-month fellows program.
Yeah, there's an AI Fellows program for the League for Innovation, and they are both doing that program to help us create what that's going to be for us. I just think it's really hard to narrow that down today, but you're making some really good points that I think we definitely need to be aware of, because we don't have policy or procedure on it.
Yeah, and we know it's happening, and it's happened to me where my own words have been put into AI and changed, and I didn't know until I questioned the difference between what I had submitted and what came out. So it would be nice to know ahead of time, this is how we're using it, this is what we're doing. If we're faculty, to be transparent with students, like, this isn't acceptable, I don't want you to use it, and I'm not using it either.
Yeah, we're gonna have to be really careful. And the thing is, as you said, as several of us have said already, it is evolving so rapidly. We don't know what AI is gonna look like next week. And I mean, this conversation could be way different the next time we meet because of how fast it's evolving. So we have to, we're gonna have a hard time keeping up with it, but it's not just us, it's the world, so.
Sorry, Serena. It's a, no problem.
So Dr. Fish mentioned the workforce. I just want to shamelessly plug that Workforce Employment Services can help your students write resumes and cover letters without using AI. We sometimes use like Google and AI to help us like generate a verb or something like that. But for the most part, when students use AI, like a cover letter or a resume, it will look just like a fellow competitor who's also applying for the same job. But it's also important to note that in the workforce, a lot of companies are now using AI to look for keywords. And so if you don't have the right things in your resumes and your students don't have the right things in your resumes, they immediately get knocked out, don't even get to interview stage. So shameless plug, use our office, we'll talk to students about how they can navigate the job search with AI as their benefit and as also not as a crutch either. So that's my shameless plug.
Oh, thank you.
You also bring up a really good point though when you're talking about employers, because one of the things that is our duty, especially as a community college, to do is to work with our employers, the people who are gonna hire our students, to find out what they want our students to know, not just concerning the skills, the practical skills, the industrial skills that we're teaching our students, but the skills around AI. Because every employer, again, is a little bit different as to what they need our students to know. So I've talked about this to a couple of people, but I think it's important that we work towards some event or some way in order to have conversations with our employers to find out, what is it that you expect students to come out of college knowing concerning AI. Again, they may tell us something today that may be different next month, but at least we need to be having those ongoing conversations.
I will add to that. My son did an internship this summer. He's a marketing major and he's getting ready to enter senior year at Missouri State. And it was business to business marketing. It was food service industry to restaurants, and over 75 to 80% of the research he did, they had him using AI for. That's just the expectation.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? Thank you all so much for coming.